Boy, am I painting a very large target over my head right now. Hello everyone, I'm Keen47, aka Wolfkeen, and welcome to another edition of Wolfkeens Thoughts. Now today on Wolfkeens Thoughts, Pokemon Sword and Shield expansions have been announced, along with a remake to one of my favorite video game franchises of all time, but that's beyond the point. So yeah, expansions for Pokemon Sword and Shield have been announced, and they've even said that they're not going to be doing an enhanced version or a sequel to these games. Instead, going towards the expansion route. I'm personally looking forward to this purely because I felt like Pokemon Sword and Shield's post-game was leaving a lot to be desired, and I kind of want more to do with the game, personally speaking, since I love Pokemon Sword and Shield. It's the game that got me back into the series, and I kind of want to go through these expansions with my weird, unorthodox party. However, anything involving Sword and Shield gets the ire of the Pokemon community. And yeah, I kind of want to talk about it, but I also want to bring up a couple of counterpoints. So a lot of the arguments I've been hearing about from these people is literally saying that this is a bad deal. The fact that they're selling us Pokemon, like 200 plus Pokemon for $30 and yada yada yada. Or I've even seen people say that they're trying to sell us the post game. And I'm just kind of sitting here like, guys, you can't make these kinds of arguments. Like, really, you can't. You really can't make these kinds of arguments unless you really know what you're talking about. Because that is the problem with DLC culture. I'll be honest with that. This is the problem with DLC culture, where people feel like whatever is added as DLC is content that was ripped out from the game and given to us later and sold to us later. And to some extent, you are correct in some cases. Look at Saints Row 3 to Saints Row 4. Saints Row 4 was actually meant to be DLC for Saints Row 3, but it became its own game instead. There is points to be made towards that, but that's kind of why I'm saying it's because there's been proof and otherwise behind it. We have no proof that the content for Sword and Shield was things that were ripped out last minute and are being sold to us at a premium, basically. Though I will be honest, I do agree with people that it's a bit too quick to be announcing these kinds of expansions, so only time will tell. However, I will at least say this. We can't determine the value of these expansions until we actually get our hands on them. Let's look through what we know about these expansions so far. They're adding 200 plus more Pokemon both with the expansions and with free updates, which means that even if you don't own the expansions, you are able to get these Pokemon through trade, the GTS, and otherwise. I know most people would want to catch these Pokemon themselves, and on that I do agree with. I kind of hope Game Freak adds like an update that allows us to run into some of these Pokemon in raid battles or something like that. Or at least, like, you know, give us a chance to lure them out with a special item. That would be nice. So that way, if you don't have the expansion, you can at least still get a chance at getting them yourself, or you could go through the trade route. Plus, along with those 200 Pokemon that they're adding, we're also seeing not just ones that are coming back, but we're also seeing new Pokemon being added with their own gimmicks and otherwise. Another thing that we're seeing with these expansions is obviously it's $30 and we're getting 2 new locations, which we've seen new outfits. Like, I don't know how many more outfits will be added into the game, but we've seen basically the outfits that they are advertising for the expansion. Probably like some of the first outfits we'll be getting. I have made the argument that the male outfits have gone screwed compared to the female outfits, so that is definitely one thing I'm looking forward to. And not to mention, we don't know what activities, trainers, and otherwise we'll be running into in these expansions. The reason why I say we can't determine the value, like if it's good or not, for Pokemon Sword and Shield's expansions, purely because we don't have enough information. This is kind of one of those times where I feel like we have to wait and see. We have to wait and see how they do once they release. The first one's coming out in June, and the second one's coming out in the autumn, and each one is going to be adding 100 Pokemon, new trainers, new activities apparently, new changes to the wild area, and various other things of that nature. It's very easy to make these kinds of arguments that Game Freak ripped out content from the base game and is selling it to us, and it's very easy to make the argument of, oh, they're paywalling us for cut content, but we don't know if this is true. And we can't make these kinds of arguments or critical assessments about value and otherwise until we know what is exactly inside of it. I remember some people making this argument towards Monster Hunter World Iceborne when we barely knew anything about it. People were saying that, oh, they're just selling us reskins, old monsters, and otherwise for $40. And what ended up happening? Iceborne became one of the most massive expansions of all time, to the point that it could be counted as its own freaking game. I'm not saying the Sword and Shield expansions will hit that same kind of itch, but this is kind of why I can't say a game is worth its value purely off of the few things that we know. Because there's always going to be something we don't know. There's always going to be something that they haven't told us yet. And there's always going to be something that is supposedly going to surprise us and stuff like that. That's kind of why I don't agree with this idea that the value of the Sword and Shield expansions is overpriced, or this kind of stuff should be added into the game as free DLC. Because we don't know what's going to be added into it, we don't know how much is going to be added into it, and we don't know its real value as of right now. This is kind of why I'm making this video, and I'm also making this argument, because I've seen so many people try to say, oh, if you want to enjoy the full experience of Sword and Shield, you have to spend $200, or other kind of stuff of that nature, and that's just an argument I don't freaking agree with. Sword and Shield have different experiences because of the different trainers you go up against, and it looks like the expansions are going to be keeping the same idea. But again, until we know for sure what's going to be in these expansions, we can't make these kinds of critical assessments. We can't say $30 is too expensive, but we also can't say $30 is too cheap. It really is a coin flip whether they'll be good or not. I remember the Champions Ballad DLC for Breath of the Wild coming out, and it wasn't really the best in the world, so... And that was $20, so only time will tell. Personally speaking, I don't blame people for not wanting to pick this up, and I don't blame people for feeling a bit standoffish or leery towards this. That's fair enough. Like, I'm not gonna say you're not entitled to feel that way, because there is a few... Like, here's the thing. Game Freak themselves literally said that they were not going to add new Pokemon into the game, and here they are going back on that word, adding new Pokemon into the expansion. So, I will say this. If you really want to be cautious about this, just wait and see what other people are saying, and wait and see what's being added into the expansions. This is the best kind of thing I could say towards everyone when it comes to these expansions. Wait and see. Only time will tell if the expansions are worth their money or if it's a scam. And to those people who are literally saying, like, Game Freak is turning into EA or Activision, I don't think you really know how bad these companies really are. Because EA has killed more than 20 companies, and Activision adds in microtransactions into games after they release. If you're trying to say Game Freak is as bad as them, man, have you been out of the loop for the longest time. So with that said, what do you think about my thoughts about the expansions being added and me talking about some of the arguments that are made? Do you agree with me in any kind of way? Do you have your own arguments to make about, against, or with the expansions? Go ahead and leave your comments down below and we'll discuss it in the comments section. So until next time, I'm Keen47, aka Wolfkeen. I hope you enjoyed, and until next time guys, take care.